What's up, my dudes? Today, this video is gonna be all about peeking. Hope it helps. Enjoy. So, before talking about peeking, we first need to clear the basics of crosshair placement. Obviously, crosshair placement in general, you always want to be peeking out with your crosshair at head level. So, if you see a guy, if you peek into a guy and your crosshair is on that guy, you want to make sure it's as likely to hit the headshot on the dude as possible. So you don't want to peek around the corner looking at the floor or at his feet. You want to be able to headshot him immediately. This is not the same with the orb, AWM, whatever you want to call it. I'll just pretend this is one. With that, you don't need to hit a headshot. A body shot is enough, so you have to keep your crosshair a bit lower in order to make sure you hit a body shot. When you peek into a guy, you always want to avoid hitting the legs, so don't peek too far down either. So find some kind of middle in between. And just to clear out basic defensive crosshair placement, so when you're not actually peeking, standoff players don't peek as cautiously as, for example, in CSGO, so you won't have to worry about close peeks too much. So expect people to swing out widely and just maximize the chances of them walking into your crosshair. So find a medium distance from the corner you want to hold, but be ready for them to not peek you as slowly, but rather just peek a bit wider. So, now we are onto the peeking basics. In general, as a rule of thumb, you want to peek always one angle at a time. So you don't want to expose yourselves to multiple angles at once, because you can't clear, in this case, 3 angles at the same time. So you want to be sure you clear them one by one. Bad crosshair placement by me here. Clear them one by one and don't get exposed to possibly multiple enemies at once. The ideal technique here is to strafe out sideways and have your crosshair at head level and just peek angles like that. So there's obviously 2 ways you can aim around a corner. You can clear slowly like this. This way you also clear for off angles, so a guy possibly standing over here randomly to surprise you. But the ideal way, if you know you don't have to worry about off angles, is to peek out while already looking at a certain position at the wall in front of you. This requires some map knowledge, obviously, but pre-aiming is the best way to maximize your chances. If an enemy is standing somewhere, you already look at him when you're peeking around the corner. This technique is actually silent. If you see it, if I walk sideways like this, I make noise, but to a certain degree, if I strafe in and out, I don't make any noise. And this way I can actually peek quicker than I do when I'm peeking around a corner like this. And speed is really important while peeking. If you are not having to be cautious about off angles, so if you don't necessarily have to peek around corners like this and pre-aim basically everything, you always want to maximize the speed. You peek in without making any noise. But why is speed so important? Well, there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is called peeker's advantage, and for those who don't know what peeker's advantage is, let me explain that real quick. So, when you peek a certain angle, your device sends out a signal to the server, and the server will deliver that signal to the device of your enemy. But delivering that signal takes a certain amount of time, and that means that when you peek out an angle, you actually peek out let's imagine there's an enemy standing there, you peek out faster on your screen than you do on your enemy screen, because the signal needs some time to be delivered to the enemy's device, and thus you have a certain time frame that is not that big if the enemy's ping is low or your ping is low, but you have a certain time frame where you could already see the enemy and he can't see you. And this is what is happening when you get killed by an enemy who is still behind the corner on your screen. He just peeked you quickly and killed you before your device received the information that he was actually peeking. Let me showcase that very quick. I could barely see the enemy peeking me, but I was already dead in that very moment. And this already shows how Peeker's advantage works. If you do it quickly, you have a real benefit, real advantage over the enemy, because the time he can react in is so small. And the next reason to peek out in a quick manner is rather a reason not to peek out slowly. If an enemy is peeking slowly like this, you can see the body now. I can shoot the body already. But he has to go out further and further and further. Now I can actually see this player from my other device. But the body was exposed the whole time and I could shoot it, but the player couldn't see it from the other perspective. Let me turn that around for you. If I peek out slowly, now I'm already visible. I don't see the player, but I can be killed. So the reason for this is the way the player model works in this game. Your imaginary eyes are not connected to your other body, so your body is sticking out while your eyes still face the wall, and thus you will an enemy can spot you when you go around a corner slowly, even if you can't see him yet. This is even worse when the enemy is crouching, because if you're crouch peeking, your ass sticks out a lot, and so you can be hit quite easily if you peek as slowly. So your enemy can actually exploit the time frame when you are peeking out but your body is already visible. This is the second reason, not to peek slowly but rather to peek in a quick manner. You can minimize that effect by peeking further away from a corner. If I peek like this, in this second both players can see each other, but obviously if I'm the one holding the angle passively, I can already see a huge chunk of the enemy player who still can't see me. But if that enemy player moves further back and peeks again, the effect is less significant. In this moment, the player can also see me. So if you want to peek a corner slowly, rather go further away from the corner and then peek it. And don't stand close to it and then peek it slowly, because your character model will be less significant to the enemy. And one more thing about peeking basics, you always want to be accurate when peeking, so you don't peek out and run. You rather peek out, and as soon as you peek the angle you want to peek, you have to be standing still, because this game obviously, if you exclude some guns with which you can actually run and gun, normally guns are more accurate while standing still, so you want to be ready to shoot as soon as you peek the angle you want to peek, and thus you always have to stand still as soon as possible. So apart from slow peeking every single angle, as I'm doing right now, there are 4 different ways you can peek an angle. There's the shoulder peak, the wide peak, and those two can also be done while crouching. So, starting with the shoulder peak, this might be the most casual peak you're going to use. You're peeking out close to corner. This one is for clearing one angle at a time. Peek this angle, then peek that left angle, then peek this side angle, then peek arches, like that. You just want to peek as far as you need to be able to see the position you want to aim at, and then you stop and you're accurate immediately. You can also jiggle with this just to get information, strafe in and out immediately, just to see if any enemy is getting into your line of sight. And yeah, it's the most significant if you want to push aside and you have to clear the most common angles, you shoulder peek. So the opposite of the shoulder peek is the wide peek, and as the name already states, instead of carefully just extending out from cover as far as you need to see a certain angle, you strafe out widely and clear the angle. You should only use this peek, this wide peek, when you are committing to a certain gunfight, because if you remember, normally the golden rule of peeking is to peek one angle at once. If I'm peeking from here, normally I want to peek this angle and then this angle and then this angle, but wide peeking does the opposite. It's riskier because you are exposed to multiple angles at once, but this is also the very nature of why the wide peek can actually be so effective, because it surprises your enemy. A normal crosshair placement, for example, someone like this, can easily be thrown off by a wide peek. Because if I know as the CT, if I know that an enemy is exactly over here, I can jiggle, for example, and make him peek this angle close to the wall, and then I can wide peek. And what this is gonna do, even though I pre-aimed the guy the whole time, the passively holding guy will have to adjust his crosshair placement in order to take the fight, and this can really surprise him and often get you the kill. But this wide peek really requires the information on where the enemy is exactly, because otherwise you're opening yourself to so many different angles and it's impossible to clear 3 or 4 new angles at once. Keep that in mind. And as I already mentioned, you can do shoulder peeks and wide peeks also by crouching, which will look somewhat like this. Crouching shoulder peek, crouching wide peek. And the reason for crouching is an enemy normally, as we already discussed, should have his crosshair at head level. And this is the head level for a standing player. But if I go down, I dodge that head level. So the enemy will have to adjust vertically in order to hit the headshot. And if you combine that with a wide peek especially, the enemy will have to flick to the side and also downwards, and this will give you an advantage. If you pre-aim the enemy's position, he will have to flick towards you, and you have not only the peeker's advantage, but also a crosshair placement advantage that can seriously throw off the enemy's aim. Yeah, so I hope this helped. Leave a like or a comment or fucking whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.